The gunshot echoed across the dusty plains of Wyoming Territory as Liam Graves spurred his horse forward, dust billowing behind him like angry ghosts of his past. It was 1875, and the land was as unforgiving as the memories that haunted him, memories of a wife and child lost to fever 2 winters ago. A woman's scream pierced the air, rising above the pounding of hooves and men's cruel laughter. Liam's hand instinctively moved to the Colt revolver at his hip as he crested the hill, revealing the scene below. 3 men on horseback circling a tipped-over wagon like vultures around dying prey. A woman cowered beside it, one hand protectively covering her swollen belly, the other raised in desperate defense. "Well, looky what we found, boys." The largest man, wearing a tattered black hat, dismounted with menacing purpose. A pretty little lady all alone in Sioux territory. Liam had seen enough. He'd buried enough ghosts to recognize when the Reaper was circling, and today he decided death would have to look elsewhere. He raised his rifle and fired a warning shot that kicked up dirt at the leader's feet. "The lady ain't alone," he called out, voice carrying across the valley with the authority of a man who had nothing left to lose. "Step away from her, or the next one goes between your eyes." The outlaws spun toward him, hands hovering over their weapons. Recognition flashed in the leader's eyes. "Graves," he spat. "Heard you'd gone hermit after your don't." Liam cut him off, eyes cold as winter steel. "Last warning." What followed was a blur of gunfire and dust. Liam had earned his reputation before grief drove him to solitude, and today, that reputation saved 2 lives. When silence finally settled across the prairie, 3 outlaws lay wounded or fleeing, and Liam stood protectively beside the trembling woman. Her eyes, wide and the color of summer sage, stared up at him with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. She couldn't be more than 22, with honey-brown hair escaping a simple bonnet and freckles scattered across pale cheeks, now streaked with dust and tears. "Thank you," she whispered, her breath catching as she winced and curved a hand around her belly. "I'm Willow Norris." Liam nodded, holstering his weapon. "Those men gone for now, but they might bring friends. We need to move." He glanced at her stomach. "How far along?" 7 months, I think." Her voice trembled. "My husband, he didn't—" She stopped, swallowing hard. "Influenza took him 3 months back. I was heading to my cousin's in Cheyenne when those men—" She trailed off, her hand instinctively tightening around her belly. Something shifted in Liam's chest, a feeling he'd thought buried alongside his family. Before he could examine it, practical concerns took over. "Wagon's busted. Can you ride?" Willow's eyes darted to his horse, uncertainty clear on her face. Yes, if I must." "You must." He helped her gather what little could be salvaged from the wagon, a small trunk, some food supplies, a blanket, before lifting her carefully onto his horse and mounting behind her. The closeness was strange after years of solitude, her warmth and the subtle scent of lavender soap, a stark reminder of all he'd lost. "My ranch is half a day's ride," he said, adjusting his hold on the reins to keep her secure. "We'll rest there, figure out next steps once you're safe." As they rode, Liam felt something stir within him, a protective instinct he'd thought dead. The woman leaning against him represented everything he'd failed to save before, and something in him refused to fail again. The journey to Liam's ranch was silent, save for the rhythmic sound of hooves and Willow's occasional sharp intake of breath when the terrain grew rough. Liam found himself adjusting their pace whenever he felt her tense, a consideration that surprised him. He'd grown hard these past years, callous like his hands, yet something about the vulnerability of the woman before him penetrated those defenses. "Almost there," he said as they crested a final ridge, revealing a modest homestead nestled in a sheltered valley below. It wasn't much a sturdy cabin, a small barn, corral, and surrounding pasture where a handful of horses grazed, but it was a sanctuary he'd built with his own hands. Willow stirred against him. "It's lovely," she said softly. "Reminds me of the place my father built when I was a child." Her words surprised him. Most people saw only the isolation, the simplicity of his home. Few recognized the beauty of this hidden place. When they reached the cabin, Liam helped Willow down carefully, noting how she struggled to stand straight. Exhaustion was evident in every line of her body. "You need rest," he said, guiding her inside with a firm but gentle hand at her elbow. "Take the bed. I'll see to the horse and bring in your things." The interior of the cabin was sparse but clean. A central room served as kitchen and living area, with a small bedroom partitioned off to one side. Willow hesitated at the bedroom doorway, her eyes taking in the neatly made bed with its faded quilt. "I can't take your bed, Mr. Graves." "Liam," he corrected automatically. "And yes, you can. Baby needs it more than I do." Something unreadable crossed her face. Gratitude mixed with wariness, perhaps. A sensible reaction, Liam thought. She'd just escaped one danger. She couldn't know yet whether he represented another. "I've been alone out here for 2 years," he said, reading her thoughts. "Only company's been my horses and the occasional supply trip to town. You're safe here, Mrs. Norris. You have my word." "Willow," she said quietly. "Just Willow now." Liam nodded and stepped outside to tend to his horse, giving her space to settle. When he returned with her trunk, she was seated at the small table, back straight despite her obvious fatigue. "You must be hungry," he said, moving to the stove. "I've got stew from yesterday. Nothing fancy." "Anything would be welcome," she admitted. "I haven't eaten since dawn." They ate in companionable silence, the stew simple but hearty. Liam watched surreptitiously as color gradually returned to Willow's cheeks. When she finally spoke again, her voice was stronger. "Those men, they knew you." Liam's jaw tightened. Buck Harlow and his crew used to ride with the Carson gang until even they found his methods too brutal. He refilled her cup with water. "They've been terrorizing settlements north of here. Didn't expect them this far south. They said something about you before. About why you're alone." Her eyes, direct and unflinching, met his. Liam's hand stilled. "My wife, Sarah, and our son, Thomas. Fever took them winter before last." The words felt rusty, unused. "I couldn't. There wasn't anything to be done." Willow's hand moved across the table, not quite touching his, but close. "I'm sorry, truly." Something in her simple acknowledgement broke through a layer of the ice that had encased his heart. He cleared his throat. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we can discuss getting you to Cheyenne." But the following morning brought complications. Willow awoke with pain shooting across her lower back, her face pale with worry. "It's too early," she whispered when Liam found her clutching the doorframe. "The baby shouldn't come for weeks yet." Liam felt a spike of panic. Memories of Sarah's difficult labor surfacing unwelcome. "Could be false pains," he offered. "Happen to—" He stopped. "Sometimes it happens. Rest might help." Rest did ease the pains, but the pattern was established. Over the next 3 days, Willow experienced intermittent discomfort that left her exhausted. Travel to Cheyenne became impossible in her condition. "There's a woman in Pine Creek settlement," Liam said on the 4th morning. "Martha Wilkins, midwife with more experience than any doctor. I can fetch her." Willow nodded, relief evident. "How far?" "Half-day's hard ride. I can be there and back by tomorrow evening if I leave now." "Thank you," she said, then hesitated. "Liam, if something happens while you're gone—" "Nothing will happen," he cut her off, more sharply than intended. Then, softer. "But there's a rifle by the door. You know how to use it?" A small smile touched her lips. "My father raised 3 daughters alone in Colorado Territory. We all could shoot before we could dance." Something like admiration flickered in Liam's eyes. He nodded. "I'll be back as quick as I can." The journey to Pine Creek was made in record time, Liam pushing his horse harder than was wise. Martha Wilkins, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s, listened to his hurried explanation with pursed lips. 7 months along and false labor? Could be nothing. Could be trouble. She gathered her supplies efficiently. "Good thing you came when you did. Another day, and I'd have been at the Henderson place for their new arrival." The return journey seemed interminable, each mile stretching Liam's nerves thinner. He'd left Willow alone, vulnerable just as he'd left Sarah when he'd gone hunting that fateful week, returning to find her burning with fever, their son already succumbing. "You're grinding your teeth loud enough to spook the horses," Martha observed dryly as they rode. "This woman means something to you, then?" Liam stiffened. "She's in trouble, that's all." Martha's knowing look suggested she believed otherwise, but she held her peace. They returned to find the cabin quiet, smoke rising steadily from the chimney. Relief washed over Liam as he helped Martha dismount, but it was short-lived. Inside, they found Willow curled on the bed, face twisted in genuine pain. "Started getting worse about an hour ago," she gasped. "Real pains now. Too early. Please." Martha took charge immediately, sending Liam for water and clean linens while she examined Willow. Her face, usually impassive, showed concern. "Baby's coming. No stopping it now," she told them. "But it's trying to come feet first. Going to be a difficult birth." Liam felt the blood drain from his face. Breech birth. The same complication that had weakened Sarah before the fever took hold. "Will they—" He couldn't finish the question. Martha's eyes softened slightly. "I've delivered breech babies before, Mr. Graves. Some make it, some don't. Depends on the mother's strength and the good Lord's will." She turned to Willow. "And you, my dear, strike me as stubborn enough to see this through." What followed were the longest hours of Liam's life since Sarah's death. Banished to the main room, he paced like a caged wolf, each of Willow's cries cutting through him like a physical blow. When Martha called for his help to support Willow's back, he entered to find the young woman drenched in sweat, her eyes glassy with pain, but determined. "I'm sorry," Willow whispered when she saw him. "So much trouble I've brought you." "None of that," he said gruffly, sliding behind her on the bed to brace her as Martha instructed. "You're the strongest woman I've met since—" He stopped. Willow's hand found his, squeezing with surprising strength. "Since Sarah?" The sound of his wife's name on Willow's lips should have been jarring, but somehow wasn't. He nodded. "Tell me about her." Willow gasped between pains. "Please. Need something to focus on." So, Liam talked as Willow fought to bring her child into the world. He spoke of Sarah's laugh, of Thomas's first steps, of the life they had built and the dreams they had had. Words he hadn't spoken aloud in years poured from him as if a dam had broken, and somehow, in the telling, the sharp edges of grief seemed to soften. Dawn was breaking when the baby finally arrived, a tiny, perfect girl, with a shock of dark hair and lungs that worked just fine, judging by her indignant wail. Martha cleaned and swaddled her, while Liam helped Willow lie back against fresh pillows, her face exhausted but radiant. "She's beautiful," Liam said when Martha placed the infant in Willow's arms. "Like her mother." The words slipped out before he could catch them, but Willow's tired smile held no censure. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything, for saving us both." Martha, packing her supplies, looked between them with satisfaction. "Baby's small but strong, need to keep her warm, feed her often. Mother needs rest and good food." She fixed Liam with a stern look. "I expect you'll see to that, Mr. Graves?" Liam nodded, unable to tear his eyes from the tableau before him. Willow cradling her daughter, a picture of everything he thought he'd never see again in his home. "What will you name her?" he asked softly. Willow studied the infant's face. "Hope," she said finally. "Because that's what she's given me, what you've given us both." In the days that followed, Liam found himself transformed from solitary rancher to caretaker of a makeshift family. Martha stayed 3 days to ensure Willow and the baby were stable before returning to Pine Creek, leaving Liam with detailed instructions and a knowing smile. "That woman and her child could heal what's broken in you," she told him privately. "If you let them." Liam scoffed at the notion, but found himself drawn increasingly to the domestic scene in his once empty home. He moved his bedroll to the main room, fashioned a crude cradle from a drawer, and surprised himself with the ease with which he adapted to the sounds of a baby in the house again. Willow recovered her strength gradually, insisting on helping with small tasks despite Liam's protests. One evening, as they sat by the fire with Hope sleeping between them, she broached the subject they'd been avoiding. "Cheyenne," she said quietly. "I should try to continue there once Hope is stronger. My cousin doesn't know what happened to me. She'll be worried." Though he'd known this moment would come, Liam felt a surprising hollowness at her words. Of course, when you're ready. Willow studied him, her eyes reflecting the firelight. Unless... He found himself holding his breath. Unless there might be reason to stay. Her voice was barely audible above the crackling fire. Liam looked away, conflict evident in the tightness of his jaw. What kind of life could you have here? Isolated, with just a broken man for company? A peaceful one, she replied simply. With a man who's not as broken as he thinks. Her fingers brushed his hand. I've seen how you look at Hope, how gently you hold her. The grief hasn't killed your capacity to care, Liam. Caring brings pain, he said roughly. Loving people means losing them. Yes, she agreed, surprising him. My father, my mother, my husband, I've lost them all. But would you erase Sarah and Thomas from your life to avoid the pain of losing them? The question struck him like a physical blow. No, he admitted finally. Never. Then you understand. Love is worth the risk. Her eyes held his unflinching. I'm not asking for promises, just time. Time to see if what I'm feeling, what I think you might be feeling too, is real. Time. Such a simple request, yet it represented a profound choice. To open himself again to possibility. To hope to life beyond mere existence. Spring arrived, painting the valley in wildflowers and new grass. Hope grew stronger daily, her tiny features gradually revealing a blend of her mother's delicate beauty and her father's strong jaw. Liam found himself looking for these ghosts of a man he'd never known, yet feeling no jealousy, only a growing sense of protectiveness toward this child who had come into his life so unexpectedly. The subject of Cheyenne arose less frequently as winter released its grip and travel became easier. Instead, Liam and Willow fell into a comfortable rhythm of shared work and quiet evenings, their conversations gradually deepening from practical matters to dreams and memories. I never thanked you properly, Willow said one evening as they sat on the porch, Hope sleeping against her shoulder, for what you did that day with the Outlaws. Liam shook his head. Anyone would have... No, she interrupted gently. Not anyone. Most men would have ridden the other way, especially seeing a woman in my condition. Too much complication. He couldn't deny the truth of her words. In another time, he might have been that man riding past to avoid entanglement. What made you stop? She asked. Truly? Liam considered the question, looking out across his land now vibrant with spring life. I think I was tired of death, tired of letting it win. He glanced at her. When I heard you scream, something woke up in me that had been sleeping a long time. Their eyes met, and in that moment, something shifted between them, acknowledgement of feelings that had been growing unspoken for months. Later that week, word reached them that Buck Harlow's gang had been captured near the Montana border after a failed bank robbery. The news should have brought relief, removing the last obstacle to Willow's journey to Cheyenne, but instead created a tension that hung in the air like approaching thunder. I could write to my cousin, Willow suggested tentatively over breakfast. Let her know I'm safe, that Hope and I are settled. Liam looked up sharply. Are you? Settled? She met his gaze steadily. I could be, if I were wanted. The words hung between them, laden with meaning. Liam set down his coffee cup, his hand not entirely steady. I never thought I'd want anyone again, he said slowly. After Sarah, I was hollow, like a house with all the furniture removed. But you and Hope... He struggled, unaccustomed to articulating such feelings. You've brought life back into these rooms. Willow's eyes shimmered. Is that enough to want to keep us here? It's more than that. Liam reached across the table, taking her hand for the first time with deliberate intent. I think I'm falling in love with you, Willow Norris. Have been since I watched you fight to bring hope into this world. Your courage, your gentleness, your strength, they remind me life's worth living. A tear spilled down Willow's cheek. I never expected to love again either. After James died, I felt so lost. But you found me when I most needed finding. Liam stood, drawing her to her feet and into his arms with a tenderness that belied his rough exterior. Stay, he whispered against her hair. Not just for now, for good. Let me be a father to Hope. Let me love you both the way you deserve. Her answer was in the way she lifted her face to his, in their first kiss, tentative at first, then blooming with the promise of new beginnings. When they parted, both were smiling through tears. "Is that a yes?" he asked, suddenly boyish in his uncertainty. "Yes," she laughed, the sound like music in the once silent cabin. Though Hope might need convincing. As if on cue, a cry came from the cradle. Liam released Willow with obvious reluctance. "I'll get her." Willow watched with her heart full as this man who had saved them both lifted her daughter with practiced gentleness, cradling her against his broad chest. Hope immediately quieted, tiny fingers curling around one of his. "She knows," Willow said softly. Children sense these things. The summer of 1875 brought more than just wildflowers to Liam Graves' valley. It brought a simple wedding, performed by the traveling preacher who visited Pine Creek monthly, with Martha Wilkins and a few neighbors as witnesses. It brought laughter back to the cabin, and plans for expansion as Liam spoke of adding rooms for a growing family. "You want more children?" Willow asked one night as they lay together, Hope sleeping peacefully in her cradle nearby. "I want whatever makes you happy," he answered honestly. "But yes, I'd like Hope to have brothers or sisters someday, if you're willing." Her response was to kiss him deeply, a promise for their future together. Fall came, painting the valley in golds and reds. Hope took her first tentative steps on the cabin porch, tottering from Willow to Liam with triumphant giggles. As Liam caught her, swinging her high while she shrieked with delight, Willow watched them with a full heart. This was not the life she had envisioned when she'd set out for Cheyenne as a pregnant widow. It was better, richer, more meaningful than anything she could have imagined. That evening, as Hope slept and they sat before the fire, Liam took Willow's hand, his expression serious. "I've been thinking about Thomas and Sarah lately," he said, not with the same pain as before, more grateful for the time I had with them. Willow squeezed his hand encouragingly. "That's good, isn't it?" "Yes," he nodded. "I realize something. Sarah would have liked you, would have wanted this for us. A second chance." "I think James would feel the same," Willow said softly. "He was a good man. He would have wanted Hope to have a father who loves her as you do." Liam drew her close, marveling at how completely his life had transformed in a single year, from isolated grief to a home filled with love, from existing to truly living again. "Thank you," he whispered against her temple. "For what?" "For needing rescue that day." His voice held a smile. "For saving me right back." Outside, the wind whispered through golden aspen leaves, nature's applause for a love story written across the wild Wyoming sky, a story of second chances and redemption, of a man who found his reason to live again in the woman and child he'd rescued on a dusty trail, proving that even in the harsh landscape of the West, love could bloom like wildflowers after rain. Winter came again, but this time Liam Graves faced it not with dread, but anticipation. The cabin, expanded now with a proper bedroom for Hope and preparations for the new baby Willow carried, stood warm and welcoming against the snow. As he watched his wife and daughter through the window, Willow guiding Hope's hands to cut biscuits for supper, Liam silently thanked whatever twist of fate had placed him on that trail at that precise moment almost 2 years ago. Some called the West a harsh mistress, unforgiving and cruel, but Liam knew better now. This land, like life itself, offered second chances to those brave enough to reach for them. He had been dead inside when he heard that gunshot echo across the plains, and now, surrounded by love, he had never been more alive.